Hello again, I'm Mike, and this is Keepers of the Word. Today's topic is the dark arts with special guest Tao Nahash, Bobby. Introduction to this topic of the dark arts. Dark occultism or dark arts refers to a type of belief system that focuses on the darker, sinister aspects of the occult and the supernatural. It is a form of spiritual and esoteric practice that often involves the worship of dark forces or entities, as well as the use of forbidden knowledge and magic. This type of occultism is often associated with negative energy, death, and the use of rituals that are considered taboo or unethical. The origins of dark occultism and the use of dark magic can be traced back to various ancient civilizations and cultures, including Babylon, ancient Egypt, and Greece. In these cultures, the practices of magic were often associated with the worship of gods, goddesses, who represented the forces of darkness and chaos. However, the modern idea of dark occultism has a distinct form of spiritual practice that can be traced to the medieval period when the church and other religious institutions sought to stamp out pagan beliefs and practices. So that's where it was probably hit the hardest, where in the Middle Ages, that's where the church was heavily against witchcraft, and anything outside of Christianity is considered satanic, which we see a lot today. I just put a post up today of Pythian Priestess talking about that Grammy performance of Sam, I forget his last name, but that post went crazy because she's literally telling everybody this isn't satanic. He's not doing anything. There's no ritual. There's nothing
Right.
behind it. But I can understand why you think it is, but it really isn't. So we want to do away with misconceptions, right? And in order to do away with misconceptions, we have to be able to look at the facts and talk about them in a way that's, I don't want to say it's educational, but kind of breaking down the bullet points and saying, hey, this is what it actually is, this is what it does, and this is how you do it, versus just assuming that, oh, because it looks a certain way, it is a certain way. So, what is your view on dark occultism, Bobby?
Well, I think that within our human nature, we have two components. We have our higher inclinations and our lower inclinations. The Kabbalists refer to it as the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. And our Yetzer Hara is kind of our lowering, more animalistic inclinations. But then the Kabbalists also teach without the Yetzer Hara, we'd never want to have children. And the lesson there is that within the light and the darkness, you have to be able to actively engage in both and understand each. So, as far as what I think about the practices of understanding the Jungian darkness within our occult practice, I think it's important. As far as I guess what people would consider like kitschy occultism, selling voodoo dolls, mass marketing, curses, etc., etc. All of these things I just think are kind of part and parcel of a capitalist system. So you're just gonna, where you have a community or something being tolerated, you're gonna have people wanting to kind of capitalize on the sensation of it. So some people gravitate to what would be traditionally dark practices, even into methodologies like Satanism, because of that sensational element to it, not really because they're wanting to dive in and understand about themselves more. But then you have sincere seekers that travel through that darkness. In Ecclesia Babylon, in my community, uh, our mother is the goddess of the abyss. So we're constantly going into that realm of darkness to
Does that
understand
sometimes scare the
ourselves
shit out of you, though?
and our place in the world. Not really. Not. I mean, when listen, when you've grown up and seen stuff as a kid, or even if you haven't, and just seen stuff in life, some of that stuff's way more scary than actually just learning about yourself, which is ultimately what's happening. So I think that what I see happening with some folks is that they become a self-fulfilling prophecy of inability to handle some aspect. You know, they start going into practices that they deem to be dark, quote unquote, and they start giving it attributes that kind of feed that sensationalism. Like they start talking about things going wrong or this or that. They give into this kind of preconception about wicked and evil magic that we get from our Judeo-Christian
Hmm.
culture that we come from. You know, so, some this memory, like these behaviors sometimes are knee jerk because it's just a byproduct of conditioning, and sometimes people have trouble negotiating that.
I agree with you. And you know, if we look at different different variations of paths, like for instance, Santeria and Palo Mayumbe, both of those paths can be used for good, and both of those paths can be used for evil. Now,
Yeah.
a long time ago, we spoke on this topic, and okay, what is the dark art? And I remember it's about intent. It's what is your intent in your path that creates either white or black. So I feel there is a darkness to any path. And I think we could even throw Christianity in this as well, because there there is toxic
Oh, we certainly
Christianity.
can.
There is people out there who, you know, do things in the name of Jesus that I do not think Jesus would be proud of. So
But this is a
yeah,
people problem, isn't it? I mean, you have Buddhist monks that are beating each other over the heads with two by fours and fights because their communities don't interact well with each other. It's people seem to have this inability to peacefully develop. Everything develops in aggressive discourse. And so in religion, it seems to be the same way it is in politics, the same way it is in business, the same way it is in the art world, in that it's kind of a cutthroat. So you'll have people that exhibit the best examples of whatever, the spirit of whatever, and then you have people that are just scoundrels that are that are out for themselves, and they're using whatever simply as a medium to actualize their
agreed. And
narcissism.
there's a lot of scoundrels when it
Yeah.
comes to spiritual practice, spiritual. They
Yeah.
prey on people, man. And you see, and I see that a lot, especially in the Santeria community, where they take. The way I see the darkness there is they take advantage. A lot of them take advantage of people, and a lot of them are doing it for selfish reasons. They're choosing that path for selfish reasons because it's going to make them rich by blessing people and doing spells for people and doing and in every one of those groups it's always somebody coming up to you. You have something wrong with you. You have this wrong with you. Let me fix you. And it's like, dude, seriously, like you don't even know me. But hold on, you're right. Okay, something's wrong, and now I got to give you $3,000 for you to fix my problem, which sounds kind of like bullshit, you know, but I'm sure that exists in other various forms within the magic community. I'm just shooting over one, but have you ever had any experiences like that?
Oh yeah. That's been my whole life of experiences in religious traditions of all forms. I mean, I so what you have is you have folks that want to have a sense of authority and power in their life. Spirituality, especially when you start going through like holy orders, for instance, it starts to deceive people into making them think that what they're achieving in their spiritual work is some reflection of, this earthly authority or earthly wisdom that needs to be revered or understood or respected. And so you have people that go and seek out, they want that approval of being the place that they want to be in their mind, right? So they go and seek people out to say, "Hey, I'm all of this. I can see this about you. See, look at me." And then they want you to reaffirm and reassure them of this thing that they're wrestling with, this inadequacy or whatever that kind of leads them to act like that. And that exists in, that exists in Magic the Gathering tournaments. So it definitely exists in religion. It exists. It existed when I worked in Best Buy. You got like, it's the it's the it's the middle manager syndrome, right? I can tell people that I'm a consecrated bishop. The reality is, for some people, that might be mean something, and for other people, it's just like telling them I'm in some kind of a polka band. They don't care. It's just me.
Look,
It's just
nobody
me
cares.
talking, right? Just me saying, and so you have a lot of that, and you have people that think that you should care or that you will care, and so they make it a point to remind you why you should care, and that's you know when you've been in this scene a while, like even in masonry, you have the same stuff. Like I can't tell you the number of times I had an older brother when I was first raised, and they would tell you to watch out for this or that, or don't do this, don't do that, and none of that was the fact. It was all them just putting one on you so they could seem like they were really in the know, and that you had to understand that they were really in the know, and it was this posturing they did. So you have it there too. You have it, yeah.
Interesting take.
Isn't it funny that when we're talking about the darkness in occultism, we seem to be referring to uh, general douchebaggery, and I think the people that are more into the hysterics of it are referring to us sitting in a circle
Yeah,
summoning a demon,
it's
right? So you can summon demons and still be an ethical person. So when it comes to that, I think that I actually have the problem of not seeing some of this occultism that people would list as dark occultism as being dark. It's just kind of part of the scene. Like I don't I am as unthreatened by it as I am
mhm.
odd fellowship. It's a method and a practice and a way of going about things, but nothing about it. I'm not led by these fears, and so I've never really had those problems that other people have that say that they run into negative spirits and all that stuff. I'm a pretty pragmatic guy, and I learned a lot from my days growing up in the Jewish faith, because I have that that background growing up of Catholic and Jewish. And the rabbi would ask one question that put things into perspective for me. He said, "How come The Exorcist, that movie, would only happen to Catholics? You would never see the Jewish family going through the same possession that they go through in The Exorcist. Why? Because it's not in the culture. You don't have Jewish families going through these 3-day exorcisms like you find in Catholic families at times. People have died in the Catholic Church because of these exorcisms they were performing. To me, that's darker magic than you could ever come up with worshiping any kind of satanic image,
Yeah.
or you know what I'm saying? Doing a ritual that leads to the death of an innocent person because of religious hysteria, to me, is as dark as it gets, if you're talking about the type of darkness that these people are reacting to. So yeah,
So no,
I feel like I
it's
went on a
okay.
tangent there. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. There's two books I want to bring up that have one was I believe, built around the 11th or 12th century, and then the other one was around the 15th century. So the first one is the Picatrix. The Picatrix is a medieval grimoire or text on magic and alchemy that was written in Spain in the 11th, 12th century. It is believed to have been very influenced by Greek, Roman, and Egyptian texts on magic and astrology. The Picatrix is considered one of the most important grimoires in the Western esoteric tradition, and is still studied and used by modern practitioners of magic and the occult. The text covers a wide range of topics, including astrology, talismans, ritual magic, and the use of spirits and demons. However, the Picatrix is also known for its controversial and potentially dangerous content, and is included and as it includes instructions for performing dark magic and invoking harmful spirits. As a result, it has been criticized by some as promoting evil and unethical practices. It is important to note that the Picatrix is a complex and challenging text that should be approached with caution. It is not recommended for individuals without extensive knowledge of magic, the occult, and their cultural and historical context. The next book I want to talk about is the Book of Abramelin, and it is a medieval grimoire that has been written in the 15th century. The text purports to be a correspondence between the biblical figure Abraham and an Egyptian mage named Abramelin, also known as, I believe, Abramelin of Worms or Abraham of Worms, who teaches Abraham a system of magic and the ways to attain the knowledge and conversations of one's guardian angel. The Book of Abramelin is considered to be one of the most important grimoires in the Western esoteric tradition and is still studied and used by modern practitioners and the occult. The text covers also a wide range of topics, including ritual magic, spirits and demons, attainment of spiritual enlightenment, and it's very lengthy, demanding. I believe it is 18-month process. And
Hmm.
I also believe, and I could be wrong, Aleister Crowley reduced that process to, I believe, 3 or 4 months, if I'm wrong.
I would
Yeah,
have to fact check that. I'm
I
not
know.
quite
I
sure
know
myself.
he brought it down. I believe he was in the middle of doing the whole ritual, but at some point, that's where the Golden Dawn issue happened with Mathers, and Mathers called upon him. He needed to leave, and he just left it. He left Boleskine House, and didn't finish the ritual.
Mm.
But he had shortened the process, meaning he just got to the meat and the potatoes, and he did it in a shorter amount of time. Uh, I don't have any experience with a Picatrix. I do know it is a very well known grimoire. However, I have read uh, some text on the Abramelin. Very, very interesting. Do you have any backing or any information on the Abramelin that you may have used?
So what I do know, I have not gone through the rite myself. I've just not gotten to a point where I've felt a need to. I know folks that have gone through it and are going through it, and I know that it's a you have to dedicate a chunk of your life to this process, and you can't falter on it. You have to plan it. The folks that have gone through it have almost planned just as long as it took them to actually execute the process. To plan, how they're going to accomplish it. Um, it's something that, of course, individuals that I know that have completed it have said that they have attained that knowledge and conversation of their HGA. And, I mean, who's anyone to question anyone when they have had an
That's
experience?
true. I mean, we
Um,
can't. We can't.
so
If you had it, if like for instance, Bobby, you have an
and
experience, right? And you're saying, "Hey, Mike, I did this. I had this experience." That experience could be very, very. It could be tailored to just you. It could be your experience,
Right.
and somebody else doing the same thing could have a completely different experience. So that's how it could play out, right?
It's kind of the nuance of that aha moment. So I would come to a revelation of something because I see something that might have triggered a memory from my childhood that happened that caused me to have this thought that came to this connection, and aha, we have an aha moment. And if I tell you how I came to that process may mean absolutely nothing to you because you're like, why would he look at this cup of coffee, and all of a sudden have this moment, right? But there's a whole chain reaction of things happening internally with the person to cause that spiritual moment, that moment of heightened gnosis. And some people have had radically profound visions. I consider myself one of those folks. I've also had those visions induced by psilocybin mushrooms. I mean, I did a working last summer where I ingested 17 grams of B plus psilocybin. And what I gained from that, uh, I'm still writing about in my diary. I'm still working through. And then when I get to a point where I can articulate it, I'll be able to express it
Yeah.
to the community, right? But this was a process. The Abramelin rite, you put yourself in this process, this ardor, and it leads you into a transcendent mindset. You start to get to a place of easy access to transcendental awareness. Um, you start to trigger those chemicals in your mind that you trigger when you smoke
So would you
DMT.
say that you're higher frequency?
When you're in the throes of it, yes. Oh, absolutely. Some people, and again, I've not gone through it personally. This conversation's whet my appetite a little bit, but um, the folks that I know that go through it say that when they're in the throes of it, when they're in the deep practice of it, time and space starts to take on a different hue, a different atmosphere, a different element. Water drips funny, sounds echo different. And in our community, we refer to this, and other communities too, refer to this as the mauve zone,
Hmm.
kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of talking about this place you enter when you get into transcendental reality. And we have that we experience this process in the call when we go through the call to Babylon, but also when people have experienced the Abramelin rite, they go through this with absolutely profound vision and experience. I've not known one person to go through the entire rite and they say, it wasn't anything. I'd like to hear, you know, it's if there was someone, it'd be like, wow, what happened? Tell me.
So leading up to two F words that I like to point out, they're not really F words, they're just F words to everybody else. Satanism and Luciferianism. These are two distinct
Oh yeah.
spiritual and philosophical belief systems that are often associated with darker aspects of spirituality and the occult. However, they have some important differences. Satanism is a belief that was established in the 1960s by Anton LaVey and is based on the principles of individualism, secularism, and skepticism. Satanists reject traditional religious beliefs and view Satan not as a deity, but as a symbol of rebellion against oppressive societal norms and religious institutions. They do not worship Satan as a deity and do not believe in a supernatural realm. Luciferianism, on the other hand, is a belief system that is centered around the figure of Lucifer, who is often seen as a symbol of knowledge, enlightenment, and rebellion against oppressive forces. Some Luciferians view Lucifer as a deity, while others view him as a powerful archetype or symbol. Luciferianism often incorporates elements of Western esoteric traditions such as ceremonial magic, Hermeticism, and may involve the worship of Lucifer or other deities associated with darkness and knowledge. So that would be Samael, Azazel, and a couple other guys we can name, but probably don't want to. What is your view on these two different paths, Bobby?
I don't really consider them to be particularly scandalous. I mean, I can tell you that I know some Satanists that can make you a mean vegan casserole. You know what I'm saying? They're pretty like health conscious, and they're pretty like responsible folks and have a pretty good life together. So, what they do is they get together and they work with archetypes, and for them that archetype is this anthropomorphic figure of Satan. To me, it's an anthropomorphic figure. I use one, Babylon, right? Some people pray to Jesus, some people are drawn to Krishna, right? We're all drawn to that bhakti urge, that draw to the personification, the personality of deity. And for Satanists, the way that deity is personified through the human spirit, through carnal expression, etc., that's no more or less valid than what I do or what someone does in Sunday school. It's just them trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure stuff out, and so you wouldn't catch me finding anything bad to say about either of those traditions, outside of the fact that, like every tradition, you have people that just aren't approaching it for the proper reasons, and they use it to, as a tool to subjugate or whatever. But that's kind of a human problem again, and not one that's particular to any one group over another. It seems to be present all the way around pretty evenly. So, and as far as Luciferianism, well, there's an aspect of Gnosticism. Promethean Gnosticism is very Luciferian. Lucifer is the Prometheus energy, the fire bringer, the one that enlightens us. So in our community, Lucifer has a place of importance. I wouldn't consider us a Luciferian community, but I consider the character and the anthropomorphic avatar of Lucifer to be very important in the Gnostic process.
I hear that. Well, we're
So yeah,
getting towards the end of this episode. Bobby, do you have any shout outs or do you want to mention anything or say hi to anybody?
you can find me on Instagram at Pineapple Abbey 156. And my website is www.ecclesiababylon.com. Actually, not my website, my community's website, but you know, I love everyone,
Right
so
on, man.
they're all mine.
Well, that brings that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you to Bobby Talnahash on this discussion of the dark arts. I hope this episode was beneficial to you. As always, thanks for listening to Keepers of the Word. If you enjoy our show, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel. Remember to tick the bell for notifications and be sure to come back for more topics and guests. Until then, this is Mike, and don't forget to always keep your word.